Hello everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to Autonomous Agents You Can Trust. My name is Neil LeBlanc, and I am with IBM, and I lead our go-to-market for watsonx.governance.
And my name is Diana Griffin, and I am with KPMG, and I am focused on AI governance, and I am part of the alliance with IBM.
So hopefully you all didn't get too stuffed at lunch, but if you did, then we're here to keep you awake and burn off some calories. Look, I think as we look back over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, I don't think too many people would have predicted just how powerful or where we would have gotten, right? How AI would have evolved. And especially as we kind of look at agents, and you look around the expo floor, you look through the thousands of sessions that were in the catalog, there's a lot about agents. And as we kind of look at how they've evolved over the course of the last year or so, they have certainly become more powerful. And it's expected that they are going to become even more powerful, and they're going to become even more sophisticated. But it comes with some concerns, right? It comes with some concerns around what their potential impact is going to be, what some of the ethical ramifications are going to be, and even what some of the impacts on society are potentially going to be. And so as we kind of look at the promise of agentic AI and agents, there's been a number of talks that I've listened to, but they can be used in a number of different ways. Certainly they could be used to help effectively help humans perform tasks and achieve business outcomes. And they could be used to augment human intelligence, right? We think we're smart. They're smarter, but they can help us if they're used in the right way. They can help automate a lot of some of the mundane and the time-consuming tasks that we typically have done over the course of the last little while. They can help improve efficiency and productivity, and they can also help us improve our decision making as well as the quality of the responses that we're given. There are studies that come out all the time. And this is an example of 3, and I think if we probably wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're going to get more studies. But you kind of look, and the first one was something that McKinsey had come out with that said, agentic AI and agents are going to help contribute to an added value of about $4.4 trillion of profit annually. And if you look at something that the BCG had come out with, they recognize that agents are here to stay, and that they're going to lead to about an expansion of about 45% growth by over the course of the next 5 years. And Gartner has said that basically by 2028, 1/3 of all of our interactions with generative AI, with Gen AI, is going to be through the use of action models or through autonomous agents. Agents are everywhere. Again, you walk around the show floor and everyone's talking about agents. It's not that they're only everywhere. It's that they come from everywhere. And they don't know where, organizations are faced with a dilemma where they're struggling to get a handle on where did they originate? Who built them? How were they tested? What data were they tested on? And that's a concern because they don't know what is being used within an organization. And so, when we talk to our customers, and Diana and I will talk about this in a little bit, but as we look at our customers and talk to them about their AI strategy, obviously they want to get as much a return out of their AI as possible, but that's only going to be possible if there's good governance, if there's good AI governance also put in place. And so when we look at some of the reasons that why governance is critical, one of the things that, if we look probably 2 or 3 years ago, it was probably a lot easier, maybe 3 to 5 years, it was probably a lot easier to understand when we were looking at traditional and predictive ML, how many models were being used, what were the use cases that they were being used for. Then we saw, Gen AI and the RAG use cases, and we started to lose track. We started to figure out, okay, well, we know potentially what LLMs, what foundation models we have, but we don't know what the use cases are. We don't know what all the prompt templates are. And so we started to lose sight. Now with agentic, it's becoming even more apparent, right? We're losing the transparency into who's building them, how they're being built, where they're being built, and how they're being trained. And that's cause for some concern as well. The inability to explain behavior. Again, when it was traditional predictive ML, you kind of knew that the models were going to run, they're going to spit some outcome or output out. Even with Gen AI, there was kind of some human in the loop, right? There was somebody would put in a prompt, would get a response back and go, no, that doesn't look right, and was able to make a decision. With agents, especially with multi-agentic systems, as they start to talk to each other and as they become autonomous, the inability to understand the decisions that were made, the lack of explainability is a major concern. And there's still some challenges around manual, error-prone testing. There's even more concern around bias, around drift, just around the general health and the quality of agents. And then there's a number of disparate tools, and of course, not to mention sort of the lack of those guardrails, right? Those safety guardrails that are put in place to ensure that they're behaving the way that they're supposed to behave and that they're being used the way that they're supposed to behave. So as we kind of look at watsonx.governance, we but we look at how to address some of these concerns and some of these risks. So the first thing that we kind of look at is, how do we start the whole observability? How do we monitor the agents for their performance? How do we know that they are performing the way that they're supposed to perform? Right? How do we know that that they're producing the output that they're supposed to produce? And this is a continuously monitoring and raising those alarm bells if something should happen. There's the evaluation capabilities, right? Evaluating at build time, at testing time, and continuously evaluating even when they're in production. And ensuring that the same quality is adhered to while in production that was met when prior to them being deployed into production. And then the last is, it's not just good enough to understand the behavior. It's not good enough to just understand the score and the results that are coming out, but it's about the optimization. How do you know what is the right agent to do for the job? Right? How do you know if something is starting to fail, if the quality, if it's starting to hallucinate, how do I go back and fix it? What are the steps that I need to take? So these are some capabilities that we look at with watsonx.governance. And I'm just going to walk through kind of a quick demo here. It's only about a minute and a half. Maybe I shouldn't say quick, maybe I should say lightning, since this is a lightning round. But let me just set up the demo real quick. We could remove that placeholder. Mark did confirm with me, so it is the latest one. But what we're about to see is a scenario where, somebody wants to onboard a new use case for a banking tooling, and as part of that use case, they want to onboard a new agent. And so we're going to go through and we're going to identify the use case and identify some risks. So again, I'm just setting this up. It is going to go a little bit quick, but basically what we're looking at here, this is watsonx.governance, and this is the what we call the governance console. This is kind of the landing page, and this gives you that sort of that landscape of AI and how it's being deployed across the organization. So this is going to go quick, but basically from this area, we're able to start drilling down and getting into the details. Now we can start seeing the inventory of the agents that have been onboarded within my organization, within my department, within my enterprise. We can drill down even further to start looking at some of the metadata. We can see who built it, when was it built, what is the purpose, so on and so forth. The other area is around being somewhat of risk adverse, right? So within watsonx.governance, we have the ability through what we call a questionnaire to ask a series of questions. Now this is a bit of a cooking show, so we're not going to go through and answer all 60 questions, but we're going to get to the outcome real quick. So based off of the responses to the questions, it'll automatically identify what are the risks that we need to be concerned with, how do we go and mitigate those risks, what are the controls that we need to put in place, and how do we have an audit that we know that we've actually taken the necessary steps and the appropriate actions to mitigate some of those risks and document that. So when auditors come in, they'll know what steps have been taken. So all of this could happen before we either onboard a new agent or do it at the time of the use case to understand, here's the use case, here's the desire, here's what we actually want to do, here are the agents or the assets. It doesn't necessarily need to be a single agent, it could be multiple. Here are the agents that we want to use, the assets we want to use, and then we combine the two. So we understand what the use case is, what are the agents, and it might be one or multiple, and that same agent might be used on multiple use cases, so understanding that the relationship between them. And then last, as we're going through this and understanding the, the sort of the risk posture, and then as we get into the approval, it's now saying, yes, I approve this, let's go ahead and approve this use case and onboard the agents. So a bit of a shameless plug. Analysts agree that watsonx.governance has been recognized as one of the leaders as part of AI governance. And so with that, I think let's have a conversation about what we just saw, what I was just talking about. So quickly, Diana, I think one of the things that we've heard that governance kind of has this sort of notion that it's more of a hindrance, more of a hurdle. I'm curious to get, what is your take on that?
So I think that we should look at AI governance as guardrails and not as a blocker. Traditionally, governance is seen as a blocker, but when we think of it as how do we adopt, a lot of organizations don't know how to get going, and they're using the lack of a plan or the lack of guardrails as an inhibitor. And so when you actually put governance in place and you put thoughtful governance in place and what you're going to accept, it allows your innovation to accelerate. Organizations and your innovative people now know what they need to do in order to get those use cases passed. A tool such as watsonx allows you to build it in, have use cases already approved, so a developer can go in and say, I can start from this use case, I can use this type of code, I know that will get approved, and go through the workflow and get it approved quicker. I have clients who have really great ideas and they're really excited for them, and they take 9 months to be even able to get the AI agent idea approved before they can even start to build, because they don't know what the governance is. By having strong and clear governance guardrails, it accelerates innovation. So we need to change our paradigm on how we look at governance. And by using a tooling, it allows us to share that information and create a streamlined approach to getting it approved and monitoring it.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% right, that so many people were nervous and saw governance as being sort of that blocker, but really it can help accelerate and help generate the return on investment, on the AI investment that customers have made.
When you don't know the governance and you don't know how to adopt it, it actually prohibits people from innovating. It also encourages them to build it on the side of their desk. You don't know what's going on in your environment, and you're increasing your risk profile. So you don't want shadow AI. You want people to create this. You don't want to actually stop them. People think, oh, if I don't tell them how to do it, or if I don't give them governance, then they're not going to do it. They're doing it anyway. So you want to provide those guardrails and provide people with an instruction manual of sorts in order to know how to accelerate their innovation.
What are you seeing as some of the challenges that customers are seeing in terms of being able to adopt or implement governance, implement those processes, implement those the practices, and so? And by the way, we only have 7.5 minutes. So.
Okay. So some of the things that I personally see is they don't even know what they're looking at. This is all happening fast. No one necessarily is an expert in this space. People just have maybe a few more at-bats than others. So they don't know what to do, so they don't do it. They hide their head in the sand. That's one thing. We don't know who is the AI governance committee. We don't know who the right people are. So they can't make a decision because there's no consensus. The old ways of working no longer work, and so they don't want to trust it. They think that if they don't have the risks assessment and they don't have all these things, they're just going to be able to stop it. You're not stopping it. So you're not governing it, you don't know what the words are, and you don't know how to get going, so you're just not doing it, but that's exposing your organization to so much risk.
Yeah, I think, there was funny stories where if you you're in a boardroom and you ask the group of people, whose responsibility is it who for AI governance, everybody would look around and go, well, maybe that person, but at the end, it's everybody.
It's everybody, yeah.
And you're right that they don't know how to get started. Absolutely. What are you seeing? How do you see sort of the agentic and agents sort of increasing the need for agentic?
I think that with the increase and the promise of agentic and agents, it makes AI governance even more important, because you need to know that that agent is now autonomous potentially, is actually doing what it says it's supposed to do. And through a tool like watsonx, you can monitor it for drift, you can monitor it for bias, you can actually set these thresholds and understand, is my agent performing? Is it doing what I said it's supposed to do? Is it acting in the use case that I've designed it to? And is it continuing to perform? It allows you to get out of pencils and spreadsheets and allows you to have a better understanding that it is actually doing what it says it's going to do. And I think that's so important with with agents and the adoption of agents, especially agents doing agents upon agents. If you don't have a governance tooling, how do you know what's happening? And with a dashboard, you can see if it pops up if there's a problem.
Yeah, I just think that the whole autonomous nature of things and not knowing, as you said, sort of the agents on top of agents, and like I said before, if you put a prompt in, if you ask a question, sort of the Gen AI, the RAG use case, you get a response back. As a human, you can make a decision about whether or not it's the right response. With agents, if you make a small mistake on that initial agent that's calling the second one, it's just going to continue to get amplified.
Absolutely.
Is there anything in specific that you or could guide or advise the audience on when assessing agents and looking for different kinds of agents to be used?
So when I look across the landscape, I start with a process and I identify where the pain points are in your process, and I focus on outcomes. I know probably a lot of people talk about this, but you should not automate your tasks and the specific things you're doing now. You want to look across your landscape of your process and identify where your opportunities are, and then automate that outcome level. And then you can have agents automating on top, monitoring that to make sure it's performing as planned. But you don't want to just automate your bad process. Like when I used to do software development, people would say, I really want this red button. They didn't really want the red button. That was their pain point. Don't automate that red button. Look at what your outcome needs to be. And that's how you can design and build your agents.
Okay. Any sort of last thoughts that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about, or?
I think, to me, one of the things I'm most excited about as adopting and looking across this is how you can get so much more with this. This is no longer prompt engineering or machine learning. Those were ways you could have done those things using your traditional means. With the evolution of where we sit today, you have to think about an AI governance tool. If you don't have an AI governance tool in place, it's going to make it really difficult for you to know that the agents you're installing and you're building are actually performant, you're getting the value from them, and you don't have a bunch of people building things on their desk that are now in your system that expose you to penetration, expose you to bias or other things that could cause a lot of risk into your environment. And I think that a tooling helps you understand what you're building, what you're deploying. IBM watsonx is hybrid for purpose, open, so it's not telling you how to build your agents, it's not telling you what tooling it can do, it can monitor your entire environment. I think it's a really strong platform that really opens you up to accelerate your innovation.
Great, perfect, thank you. So I think with that, there's a couple of things. So obviously we're working on watsonx.governance on delivering out a development kit around agent ops. And we have a booth back there with a big IBM sign, and there's a big bumblebee outside. So with that, thank you very much for your time today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.